Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ecommerce Coffee Break podcast. I'm Klaus Lauter, and you're listening to the podcast that helps you become a smarter online seller. In today's episode, Larry Kim, CEO of Customers.AI, joins me, and he has analyzed the entire website visitor ID industry and now thinks that it is a complete scam. So let's find out why. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Ecommerce Coffee Break podcast. You likely have seen visitor ID tech that helps turn unknown website visitors into sales opportunities, but are these tools really effective as they claim? Today's guest, Larry Kim, has put them on the test and uncovered some very surprising results. Larry is the founder and CEO of Customers.AI, a marketing technology company specializing in website visitor identification and AI-powered customer acquisition. He's also the founder of WordStream, a leading PPC software company managing over $1 billion in annualized ad spend for tens of thousands of agencies and businesses globally, which was acquired by Gannett in 2018 for $150 million. Let's welcome Larry back to the show. He was here before and dive deep into this very interesting topic. Hi, Larry. How are you today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me back.
Can you explain for listeners who haven't heard about website identification, visitor identification, what it is?
It's a relatively new emerging technology that's been around for a few years, and the promise that they are making a claim that they can do is that by installing a JavaScript code on your website, that ID providers can claim to accurately identify the identity of the person who is visiting your website. And of course, the value prop here is potentially very high because conversion rates are stubbornly low, like they can be like mid-single digits typically. And if you can know who, people who didn't convert with, organically, you could then, if you were able to identify those people, you could follow up with email or ads if you had their email addresses or other identifiers. So that's sort of the premise of visitor ID tech. There's quite a few vendors in the space today, and Customers.AI is one of them.
Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, this is a very promising technology, finding out more about your website visitors. But you found out or you realized that there is a problem there, and we want to dive into this. What brought you to the conclusion that you might need to dive deeper into it and find out what is going on?
So recently, about a year ago, it came to our attention that the way that we were sourcing data was meaningfully different from how other vendors were doing it. And that just uncovered a kind of a rabbit hole of us wanting to do data accuracy tests on not just our data, but also the other vendors in the space. And what we found was that the whole industry is basically a big fraud. This is like, seriously, that these ID vendors are just producing crappy shit garbage data and selling that to you. It's not 0% correct. It's correct maybe 3, 4, 5% on the low end to as high as like 25% on the high end. These things are wrong like 70 to 95% of the time. Like when they give you an ID and say like, this is so-and-so on your website, it's actually the wrong identifier. The vast majority of the time is what we found. And we repeated these tests across like every possible data vendor that we could try. And we believe they're all, pretty awful. It's not 100% wrong. Like there's a small amount of signal in there, but it's mostly wrong. Like it's 1 in 20 is correct, or 1 in 10 is correct. Like it's pretty bad. And we believe that the issue here is that these companies in this space are all sourcing their data from the same, toxic waste pile data companies, and it doesn't even matter. Like the data companies that are being used are like typically like co-reg networks or DSP data companies, and they're just kind of trying to work with that data. That data mined for high accuracy type utilization, and they're rife with fraud and bots and fake shenanigans. And so it's just kind of de-anonymizing the toxic waste that they're licensing. Is what I'm saying. It was on the other hand, Customers.AI, we're the opposite. We are mostly right. Nothing is 100%, but we do see that when we run the same data tests on our data offering, that the accuracy rates are mostly right. So it goes from like mostly wrong to mostly right. It's typically 65, 75, 80%, correct. And the important thing is you don't actually have to just believe me just verbatim. There is a way to do a little bit of analysis on the data being provided by whatever data provider you're using, and you can kind of arrive at the truth.
I want to dive a little bit into the implications that can have for a online seller. For somebody who has an online store, thinks now he has the correct data from website visitors and obviously gets data delivered, email addresses. What can happen to your own email marketing, for instance, or generally marketing if you're using false data?
I think it's catastrophic, Klaus. The issue here is that if you're just using crap data for ads, I mean, it's not necessarily the end of the world because Facebook can kind of do some auditioning of your ad to see who's interested. But if you're using it from an email perspective, the risk is catastrophic, like an existential risk to your business, essentially. Clearly, email marketing is a very, very important channel for D2C e-commerce retailers, and if you're using these ID providers that have 5, 10, 20, 25% accuracy, that means that the inverse of that, 95, 90% of this data is wrong. That is going to torture your email deliverability, your email reputation. The current spam, threshold for being considered, classified as a bulk sender is 0.3%. So imagine if you're randomly emailing people. I mean, this is not an ID provider. These are worse than cold emailing systems. Even with cold emailing systems, what you can do is you can get certain people with certain job titles or certain demographics, you see what I'm saying? And then just email them out of the blue. Here, when these data providers give you a wrong ID, it's not just it's another buyer, and we're close. This is somebody who, was on the same IP address as someone else, at the same time. And the data provider that they're licensing, has 1,000 of these people on the same IP address, and they're saying let's just include them all, okay? So it's like going to the wrong person in line at a Starbucks or something like this, and it's not just a little bit wrong; it's completely wrong. And so the negative the negative email engagement rates, so unsubscribes, complaints, bounces, it's going to be inversely proportional to the accuracy. So if the accuracy is single digits or low double digits, those complaint rates are going to be sky high. And you might be wondering, well, why, if this is true, why hasn't everyone been kicked off their Klaviyo? Well, first of all, we've heard many stories of people being kicked off of Klaviyo because of compliance and deliverability issues when you start pumping this toxic waste into your ESP. But secondly, it doesn't happen all at once. It's like being poisoned slowly. So imagine the thing about these visitor ID solutions is they actually provide a lot of IDs. You might be getting 1,000 new emails a day or something like this at say 10% accuracy. So that 90% error, okay, that's off of the 1,000 new. And an e-commerce store might have 500,000 emails in their Klaviyo or ESP on day one, okay. So that 90% error is then diluted by the fact that their domain is doing a lot of first-party emailing that's kind of diluting away the toxic waste. The problem with this is if you stay a customer of one of these crappy shit data ID providers, the problem kind of just poisons your ESP over time. Like, so at 1 month, in this example, you're at 30,000 emails. At 3 months, you're at 90,000 emails. Like, that's percent of your 500,000 emails. And if 90% of that's wrong, like that, it's just like it's just chipping away at your deliverability, and it's just a matter of when. Like, maybe it's like 3-4 months down the road, like at some point, or if you're a smaller brand that's just starting and you're using this, like that tipping point from when your ESP is mostly like garbage, that'll happen very quickly. Like, it could happen in the first week. So it's just a very really dangerous situation that all these vendors are using, toxic visitor ID data, not really having an understanding of like how that data is created or how to test and understand what the accuracy of that data is.
No, that makes perfect sense. And I like the example that you mentioned with Starbucks. I work a lot of coffee shops. So basically, I go to an online store and then everyone sitting around me, because we're all on the same IP address, one of a sudden shows up in your database with their email address as far as they can read through. Obviously, very bad implication. So obviously, these providers and these database providers give the whole industry a very bad rep. And we were mentioned in the pre-call also that you can see it from your conversion rates because you're not really targeting the right clients. Tell me a little bit on how that reflects in conversion rates.
So we've done case studies with major brands. And one such case study is with a retailer called Jordan Craig. And, one vendor gave 14,000 emails and generated 24 purchases. So that's like a very, very, very tiny conversion rate. Like, remember, it's not all wrong, but it's mostly wrong. So 24 out of 14,000, that's like 0.0, something like 0.04% or something. It's a fraction of a percentage. Customers.AI gave approximately 6,000 emails, so like less than half the number of emails, but it generated like 224 purchases. So that's 8 times more purchases with half as many emails being produced. So, it's 16-20 times higher conversion rates. It's not just a little, it's like more than an order of magnitude difference here. Another vendor was even worse. It did like, a similar number of emails, like 8,000 emails. And it produced 1 sale. So that's like 0.01%. And then another one did, 3 sales off of 10,000 emails or so. And it's almost worse than just randomly generating emails and sending them out. There's just a lot of error. Can we talk about like how to test the data at all?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, sure. That would be interesting to hear.
So I think that the challenge for all these unsuspecting customers that are using all these and agencies, like, oh my God, like agencies are like using this stuff and not even knowing what it is. The issue here is it's a little tricky at first to understand if the IDs being provided by the ID vendor is correct or not. Like, there's an assumption that it's true because that's what they're saying it is. But like most of the discourse in the space has been revolved around like match rate. So like, oh, we can match 20% of your visitors, and someone else comes up, another startup comes up and says we can do 40%. Like, it's the match rate is kind of a joke because like I can double the match rate just by generating more phony fraudulent emails, and the way that you can check to see if the guess provided by the ID provider is correct or not is to establish a baseline of truth. That baseline of truth is typically your first party data. So if somebody actually purchases from your store, at that instant in time, you should have very, very high conviction. This particular session is Klaus or this is Larry. Like, you'll know exactly who that person is because they just purchased. And so what we've done is we've just made it easier for people to then rewind that session to see what the guesses were buy, any of the available visitor ID providers, and they're usually wrong. Like it's just, and you look at the emails of who they thought it was and who it really was. They're not even close. It's just like, what, it's a random person who was routed through the same network at the same time, or has a similar browser configuration. Like it's just completely wrong the vast majority of the time. And this is a big deal, Klaus. Like people aren't testing it, and what we've done is we're making it easier for people to see this by offering like a free data testing service.
Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, at Customers.AI, you do something different because your results are far better than anyone else in the market. So, where's your approach different?
We do this fundamentally differently from everyone else. Like just the whole premise of how our ID graph is constructed is completely different from how everyone else is doing it. And without going into all the details, what I can tell you is that the founders of the companies who do this kind of ID graphs are definitely like, they have that panache, and they're like, you've met some of them. They have this panache, and they're like really just like good at hyping things. Like really, none of them that we've looked at have any serious engineering abilities. Like there's mostly like a sales and marketing kind of go to market. Where we're different is that Customers.AI is an engineering company. Like most of our company are engineers. My background is in electrical engineering, and we just have approached the problem from I would say in the last 18 months or so, we've been approaching it from a meaningfully different angle from what the industry is doing. And I think that the way that the industry is doing it right now is ridiculous, because none of those sources that vendors are licensing are just black boxes. They don't even know, like they don't even know what's in that data they're licensing, because it's just like a feed. Like you didn't have anything to do with how the ingredients were packaged or anything. Like it's just like, here it is. It's like, okay, I'll use it. Like we control the kind of the build and the sources at every stage. It's just very different. And I think that the fact that none of these other companies have done anything to fix their data leads me to believe that it's just not possible for them. So
now, obviously, somebody who's using these systems, and you said you're providing a free data accuracy test, so people can go and really check on the quality of the data they get from any provider out there. How does that work? Somebody comes to you, how can they run the test with you?
It's pretty simple. Like most of these ID providers have a way of like either exporting or sending the data somewhere. And so, just if you happen to have, some other ID provider, we can just, work the data and kind of connect the dots. It's important to understand that the data test that we're providing here isn't necessarily something that couldn't be done by any individual brand, because like the brand knows who the real purchasers are, and they know what data is being provided by these ID vendors. We're just doing a better job of matching them up to see like were they right or wrong. And this is something that they could do if they had the technical wherewithal, and that they could reproduce like on their end independently. But we're just offering to give them a tutorial on how to do that matching up of data, just because it's really not that complicated.
I think it's super important because, as you said, you're poisoning your data over time. And a lot of marketers are already interested in volume. So if you're sort of blind, if you see, I have 1,000 new emails coming in per day, makes every marketer out there happy. But if the data quality is just not on spot, you're really hurting yourself, and you don't want to be kicked out of Klaviyo for that. break a business.
It's happening, and the churn rate for a lot of these products is extremely high. It's as high as customer lifetime value of 3, 4, 5, 6 months, which is extremely low. It's just really funny because even when it's complete crappy shit garbage, still get these 40% open rates, and you still get these 26% click rates. It's these people saying what the heck is this? They open it and they click on it. So it's not immediately obvious what's happening right now, but I would be focusing on things like the complaint rates, which are always higher than 0.3%. I would be looking at the overall accuracy and the conversion rate from if you're getting 20,000 emails or something, there should be more than a couple dozen purchases.
One person. No, absolutely. Let's talk quickly about customer AI. Who's your perfect customer?
We love e-commerce companies. 3 million GMV and up is who we're focusing on.
Okay. What's the onboarding process if somebody really wants to move away from a provider that does not provide?
So it's pretty simple. We would want you to feel comfortable, so we would work with you to just do a free data test and to see what that is. It's spoiler alert. It's going to be shocking. It's going to be 5, 10, 15, 20. It's going to be mostly wrong. And then transparently, we can offer to do the same thing with our data, and it's not perfect, but it'll be it'll be a multiple better. We've seen as high as 16 times more accurate or 2 times more accurate. It's somewhere going to be on that spectrum, and then you can decide for yourself, which way to go.
That makes perfect sense, and I think it's definitely worth trying it out because you don't want to wreck all the data that you have, and more coming in by the day.
Yeah, imagine if you're an agency and you're recommending the use of one of these ID providers to a portfolio of 20 clients or something like this. That's an existential risk to your agency, because if you don't you should at least do a test to see what it is that you're pumping into your clients' accounts. You don't have to do anything with the information. You could say I'm happy with 25% accuracy or something. You can make that determination separately, but to not even know what the accuracy is of the data that you're using from your data provider is I think is quite irresponsible, and as you're supposed to be helping them grow and looking out for them, your clients. And so I think this is just it's worth getting a data checkup is what I would say.
Absolutely. And I think the idea and the technology is there to make it work. And I appreciate that you're helping our listeners in getting to the truth of it and hopefully getting better data out of it. Where can people go and find out more about you guys?
It's Customers.AI. And if you go to Customers.AI/test, you can sign up for a free data evaluation.
Okay, I will put the link in the show notes, and you're just one click away. I hope a lot of people will reach out to you, not only the ones that are already using another provider, but also the ones that are generally interested in the topic of finding who's on their website, on their store, and getting more data from that.
Yeah. In summary, I just think it's something that a lot of people may have had some suspicions around. It should be doing better. Why doesn't everyone use this technology? If it really is the correct ID of all these visitors, and this is like a second generation visitor identification. If we can actually do what we're saying we're doing, I think the upside is tremendous. Thank you, Klaus.
Thanks so much. Let's keep in touch, and that will be interesting on how this goes into the future and how more accurate this can get. Thanks so much for your time today.